hereby announce and state that adequate notice of this meeting was provided by virtue of a resolution scheduling the time, date, and place of the meetings of the Borough Council of the Borough of Morris Plains for the year 2025. Which resolution was adopted by the Borough Council on January 7, 2025, and published in the Morris News and the Daily Record. And by the posting of such resolution on the bulletin board in the Borough Hall, all the above actions being in accordance with NJSA 10:4-6. Roll call, please.
Mayor Carr,
Present.
Mr. Cortez, Mr. Bryn,
Here.
Mr. Houston,
Present.
Mr. Ivy,
Present.
Mr. Pontier,
Present.
Ms. Verga.
Present.
And just for the record, Mr. Cortez had something unexpectedly come up this evening, so he will not be with us. So, without further ado, we will go, Chief, if you'd like to move forward and introduce who's here for you, or with you, and why we're here.
Certainly. Good evening. As you're all well aware, we've been working for quite some time, it feels like, on some plans for the renovation or construction of police headquarters, the original buildings from 1942, as you see from the new plaque outside, and some additions that were renovations that were made in the early 90s. So the department has outgrown our current facilities, and it has some lack of space. So we entertained the Musial groups who are with us this evening are no Musial Senior and no Musial Junior. You can guess which one is which.
I can hardly tell.
But they have been working with me for the better part of a year and a half or more, probably now. And consultation with the Conceptual Plans Committee that has changed hands a couple of times with changes in council seats, but to present some of the final schemes that we're presenting to the council this evening for upcoming decisions maybe later this year. So without further ado.
Okay, thank you very much, man. All right, so you have, just to let you know, you have till 8:30, we have to go into our regular meeting, and it doesn't take that long. We have other business to do as well, but to give you, just to give you some sort of.
I'm happy, sure. Thank you, Mayor. We can make it as long as it's short as.
I don't want to cut anybody short, but I just want to give you the time frame.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a report. We'll give you the report after the presentation, but just to give you a little bit of background, Chief made some comments earlier, but I started the firm in 1976 when I had black hair and a lot lighter in weight. So, and one of my first jobs when I started the business was you all probably don't remember the Local Public Works Act of 1976, but that was an act by the federal government that said if you could be under construction in 90 days, they would fund 100% of the building. Okay, so we started out with the Borough of Roselle, and I read the regs and all that, and demolition was the start of construction. So we produced a set of drawings for demolition in about 2 weeks, and a month later, the building was down and we were on our way, and we just had to wait to hurry up and get the plans done, that sort of thing. So, point being that we've done a number of municipal buildings, government buildings, police headquarters throughout the state of New Jersey. So, I'm fortunate enough to have Noel join me in the profession. I thought that I would have an engineer because my other son went to Stevens, but he graduated Stevens and went on to other things. He didn't like MEP engineering or structural engineering, so.
One out of two ain't bad.
That's right. I'm batting 50%. I think that's pretty good. But anyway, we started, as the chief said, about a year and a half ago, with doing an analysis of what they have, what you have, and what you don't have. And we started interviewing all the people and came up with a document that was a planning document showing what the needs are, what you presently have. From that, we went into the conceptual feasibility study. We ended up with about 7 or 8 schemes, of which that was turned down to a number, but it was the police department, our firm, and our consulting MEP engineers, Whitman, who analyzed the mechanical systems, the MEP systems of the municipal building police headquarters. Then we went in and took a feasibility study of the different departments, the different areas of the building, and came up with a matrix giving us the square footage and of the different areas and what was available.
So just to touch on what Senior said, the analysis was kind of two tracks. We looked at the existing conditions of both the building and the spatial allocation for the police department itself. Then also through the interview process, we determined what spatial requirements each programmatic element had. So it was seeing what was needed versus what's available and trying to find ways of melding the two and seeing if there's ways of reconfiguring, potential additions, and seeing the implications of all the different types of strategies in the different schemes. So. Right, so this is just an axonometric showing existing conditions of what's currently there. So in January, we presented a number of options. As Senior said, there were initially 7 schemes. That was culled down to 2. The first being an addition, a 1-story addition at the front of this building with a 2-story addition towards the rear, trying to maximize the limited available square footage on the site. But we'll get into that, the drawbacks and kind of potential pitfalls of dealing with an existing building in an occupied space. So this is kind of showing the program of the basement level in this particular scheme. And so we did this, for all 7 schemes, trying to figure out how to get a lot of program into the available space.
With the addition to the front and to the rear, leaving the area where the emergency generator is open.
Second floor. So this is how the massing would be in this scheme. And so for each one of these schemes, we thought about not only the program but the scheduling implications and obviously the cost and the timeline associated with each and how that can affect the cost and the schedule. And then with each, it had the pros and cons of each scheme. So this is all in the report.
So we analyzed the cost, the time frame, and then the pros and the cons. And obviously, one of the problems with doing anything in this building is the disruption that has to take place to do the work. And just to give you an example, for Union County, we did the clerk's office, and it was only a few thousand square feet, and it was a 5-year, 6-year project because it had to be done in phases so as not to disrupt the passport office and the clerk's office and the record room. So you have to be very cognizant of what's going to happen during that year or year and a half or 2-year process for construction, because it has to be phased, because obviously the municipal building has to be kept in operation.
So I guess alternatively, we were asked to look at a potential location off-site, off these premises, and 25 Cable Road was looked at for its ability to kind of have more of a free reign or the ability to construct without imposing on the existing municipal operations.
When we started, we really didn't realize that you owned as much property as you do over there next to the 9/11 memorial and the teen space. And this particular scheme was taking or demolishing the teen center, which we found when we really got into it and looked at the lot and the blocks that were in there, we realized that we could just shift the building over, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But
So by no means is this, a design. It's just really to show the massing, the amount of space required on that site.
And one of the interesting things that we found after talking to a lot of people is the flooding issues under the railroad bridge, that it's hard for your emergency services to get from one side of the borough to the other side of the borough. So that's a major consideration. So we went through again, the costs and the pros and cons, and then another, go ahead, Noel.
Well, after that, we were asked to revisit and kind of cull down and reconsider some of these options and maybe take elements from one scheme and tie them together. So this scheme is 6, and it is to try to reconfigure the internal workings of this existing building and put a 2-story addition in the U shape towards the rear where the generator currently is. And so,
The green is the exit from the basement up to the stairway. You'll see it in the next slide.
I mean, that is something that, just generally across the board, that, considerations of ADA accessibility, that came into play, that need to be addressed. And then the ground floor, I mean, I think one of the
Go back to the ground floor.
drawbacks of this scheme was the fact that from a police perspective, it was separating the chief's office and some of the police functions across 3 floors. So this is the ground floor with the sally port and the processing towards the rear in the addition at the rear of the building. And then, police functions and really thinking about the publicly accessible portions of the building versus secure portions, as well as trying to make maybe a more efficient space with the restrooms. So thinking about how the restrooms, the publicly accessible restrooms could work in the building. So on the 2nd floor, in this scheme, there are now publicly accessible restrooms up here as well. And then you can see in the back that the chief's office and the kind of break room is up on this level. And that's in this.
So again, the pros and the cons of the scheme.
And then lastly, we in looking at the potential drawbacks of the previous scheme that was off-site at 25 Table Road, we looked at some of the tax maps and saw that there might be a potential opportunity to utilize the adjacent lots, which are also owned by the municipality. Thought that this might make some sense in that there's proximity to existing parking, proximity to the memorial, as well as the potential ability to incorporate additional public safety services at this portion of the municipality.
And it was interesting because of the parking for the memorial, that parking can serve a dual purpose for the police as well, where they can keep their cars in the back, but the visitors could use the existing parking that was there.
So again, a partial basement for locker rooms, and then the majority of the program as a 1-story building.
Then we were asked that, as Noel mentioned before, there may be a need to have a true public safety use of the building, where you can move a fire engine over there and an ambulance, if the need be, to make them more readily accessible to that side of Berwick. So this shows just the same building for the police, but a small addition for a fire engine.
As they've both alluded to, when we have an underpass flood or serious storm, we have issues getting apparatus, ambulances, police cars to the other side of the underpass. This allows us to put a fire truck on the northbound side of the underpass while maintaining apparatus here at the same time. And you have all probably experienced it when you have to go around the complete borough into Parsippany or Hanover Township to come out the other side. That increases our response time, by anywhere from 8 to 10 minutes in some cases. So.
And then again, a list of pros and cons and the cost estimate and the possible schedule. So, in consideration, you have a lot to consider, the renovation portion, the addition and renovation, and all the disturbance that's gonna be ready for. And that may sound pushing one side or the other, but I'm not, because you have to be aware that there is some disturbance to the existing, while you're doing the renovation. The addition part of it is easy, but the interior renovations are something that has to be thought out very carefully and phased to cause the least amount of disruption to the existing operations.
Right. I mean, it's absolutely not insurmountable, but there's an additional level of complexity when just thinking about, and there are things that you might just encounter in doing demolition that were unforeseen conditions. So there's always there's always a chance of well, there's more chance of something there being an issue in an existing building versus.
So you have some serious decisions to make. We understand that you're considering a possible referendum, which is probably a very good idea.
So before you go much further, why don't you give us the price on the three scenarios that are here, so that everybody has an idea of what we're talking about, and since that's probably the biggest and most important part.
Right. For, and I better put my glasses on so I don't read on.
And turn your hearing aids up, right?
Haven't gotten that far yet, but it's just the glasses, when I start reading eights when it's a six, you know, that's the rough part. But anyway, scheme 2 has a bottom line number
So
of,
if you can just say schemes 2 is what, so everybody's clear.
That's the one, that's this site, 1-story addition in the front and a 2-story addition in the rear. So, projected, construction costs of between $6.17 and $7.14 million. And those prices are in, 2027, dollars. We, took the midpoint of the anticipated construction duration and that's what that.
and did our best guess in terms of what inflation might be for the next couple of years. So the bottom line cost, the construction cost, as Noel said, was 6.7 to 7 million. The project cost, which includes fees, furniture, all your computer equipment and all that, you would be up to 7.48 to 8.66.
So are those two prices, you add those two together, or is that?
No.
Oh, okay.
So, I'm sorry. I should have
Project
just given
cost is
the
project
Okay,
cost included.
no, thank you for clarifying, I appreciate it.
Oh my God. I need the hearing aids. And, and the Minutemen.
So, you know, that's probably 18, maybe a 24-month period from start to finish. Then you have scheme 5, which again was.
That was 25 Tabor Road.
Right. That was the earlier scheme, and that goes from construction costs 8.46 to 9.8, with a project cost, total project cost including construction of 9.82 to 11,370,000. So, and then scheme 6, which again is renovation here, is construction 6.76 to 7.82, with a project cost of 8.2 to 9.5 total project cost. And then scheme 7, which was the Tabor Road site with the
Additional fire deck.
additional firehouse, is 8.41 to 9.73, and a project cost of $9,760,000, or 11 up to $11,300,000. So that is our best guess at this time. And of course, we do our best to project inflation, but sometimes we hit it, sometimes we don't. So let me give you these words.
Thank you, sir. While he's passing that out, the difference between scheme 7 and scheme 5, it's the same total project area. So is there less space for the police department humans inside, and there's, we allocated that space for the vehicle?
Yes.
Well, I think scheme 5 demolished the teen center and the other one left
Yes,
it there.
right,
So
exactly.
scheme 5 got rid of the teen center and scheme 7 keeps it there.
Yeah, but scheme seven has, is it, or that's seven A versus seven?
There's a 7A as well. I think there's 7 and 7A that we utilize. 7A, I believe, adds
Fire.
the fire department, I think it's a $250,000 increase
Yeah,
to
it
add
is.
7A, the bay on the side, so you're decreasing our workspace area.
And bear in mind that we didn't speak to anybody from the fire department relative to that, so that's just simply a garage space, no other rooms.
I think the fire department talked to the committee.
In conversation with the fire chief, he was like, yeah, just a bay would need, you know,
Right.
additional restrooms or places for other additional equipment, it would just be, you know, housing for, you know, of an engine.
So just as a little bit of background, this started with the chief and, you know, really some, an overview of an inspection, I guess, of the police department. So we did, I talked to the chief and said, you know, give us some wants and needs, right? And, my expectation was a little less than this, obviously, but you know, the Sally Port had to be expanded. We needed somewhere for juveniles, we needed somewhere for families or individuals being questioned, you know, privately, you know, some sort of, you know, those sort of renovations, along with the female locker rooms downstairs, and again, along with the male locker rooms, some added space, and trying to get that fit into what we have here. But this is a much grander scheme than that. But we'll see where it all goes, and I think, as you alluded to before, the council, if they decide to move forward with this, we'll probably go out to some sort of a referendum come November to see whether the public wants to go forward with this and with these price tags moving forward. So that's a little bit of history, really vague history, and but members of the council have any questions?
Well, if I may, before that, Mayor, you're 100% right, and the State Department of Corrections and those agencies that review police departments, the regulations have changed, especially with juveniles. You know, they can't be in sight of somebody else being brought in handcuffs, so that kind of thing. So there's a lot of differences in today's regulations as what it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
I totally agree with you, but I do think we're grandfathered in some of those areas
Oh, yeah.
or whatever, so, go ahead. Go ahead, Art.
I was just gonna say, I think there's some safety issues. I don't know how much the chief wants to spend for officers.
Yeah, I mean, really, the driving factor of all this was my strategic plan from 2022, I believe we're at, where, and we plan on doing, you know, open houses for the public to come see our current working space, and, really, our holding cell right now is just a standard office door. That latch is closed. It's a bench with a handcuff apparatus to it, so there's some safety concerns there as well, with just a glass window on it, could be easily broken. Our officers literally sit as close to these two chairs together when they're processing somebody, and our solution to that is to handcuff the individual to a desk so they don't have free movement. So it was really driven a lot by the safety concern for our officers and the space that they have to work in, expecting, you know, that they have families, and I am expected to keep them safe, and I don't always feel 100% that we're doing that with where we're at. Again, we retrofit a police department into, you know, a building from the 1940s with a small renovation, so we're lacking some space. You know, upstairs, the department's obviously growing. We've gone from 17 police officers to 18 police officers, and, you know, actually 19 now, currently. But, you know, so there's some additional space in the locker rooms that we don't have, you know, ability to grow for. Two of the projects listed here allow us for, you know, future expansion. As you all know, the borough is growing in size and population, and at some point, your police force may have to grow. So, schemes 2 and 6, I believe, kind of limit us to the expansion, whereas 7 and 7A allow for some future growth of the agency for the next, you know, 25, 30, even 40 years. So you accomplish a lot again, we've used the phrase as we're discussing this cost versus value, right? Where, you know, you're looking at a project, of course, and I know they're large numbers, but what's the value in an additional 5, 10, 15, 20 years when you don't have to invest into another renovation of the building, because we went with a smaller scheme at the time. So again, but the reason why we've all discussed going out to referendum is because we want to see what the public's appetite is in investing in our agency. So why we may go in November and ask the public to provide their input and support or not support these projects.
Yeah, I mean, I've been up, so I'm a volunteer firefighter, so you could have asked me. But I've been up here and there's a patrol or sergeant would say, hey, we're interviewing a family down here in the chambers, could you respect the privacy? Of course, you know, but knowing that I'm a dual, you know, councilman, and so the space seems very limited, as the mayor, you know, alluded to, so. I think it's important, the Sally Port, I've been on about 28 years, and we've had some property like, oh, we could build just a garage over here for the engine, or just place it there during the storm. So I think from a fireman point of view, I think it'll help, and like Mike said, between 8 and 10 minutes, that can seem like an eternity, whether you need an EMS or fire or police to arrive, so that seems like a long time. So I think it's some great benefits to some of these plans over some of the other ones.
Thank you, we haven't experienced that very often, so.
What's that, the flooding of the bridge?
No, just the late response over there.
I got pictures from 1920.
1920, it's the same thing, but yeah.
No, you're right,
Yeah.
right, thank God we haven't had that delay, and we do mutual aid with other towns.
Anyway, questions?
I just want to comment about the floor, I do appreciate the detail and the expertise that you guys brought, so, you know, I think it's very impressive, so, and the costs are large, I know our CFO Anna's in the back there, so she could probably, you know, if you have specific questions, I think over a 20-year bond, it wasn't.
Yeah, so we have, so we've discussed it, and it'll add about $600,000 to $700,000 over 20 years, and it'll cost the resident roughly $230, $240 per month, per year, you know, for the $11 million.
Per month or per year?
A month.
I think.
Oh, I'm sorry, per year.
Per
year.
I think,
I'm sorry.
I think my fuzzy math was like between $16 and $18 a month.
Well, your fuzzy math and Anna's fuzzy math.
Her math's better than my math, that's why she's there and I'm over here.
Yeah, a month, you're right, that's $17 a month, $200 a year for.
Well, it's still a lot of money, but I think
Absolutely.
to keep our officers safe, our residents safe, I think it's.
Well, again, some of the other things, if you go back, I think it was like slide 2 or 3, it was really early in the presentation where we show the current site, and you all kind of know from being here on a day-to-day basis what we're dealing with. It was the outline of the property in yellow line. There we go, our current site. So you can kind of see where we're at now with, you know, 6 patrol vehicles, I should say, and 3 administrative vehicles, and all the staff that comes on site. So that's another consideration of, you know, access to this building when we have to move, you know, out towards the back. And I think one of the schemes, we actually lose parking spaces when we're currently kind of already oversubscribed for the site. But again, you know, we can make do with some of the options that we have here as well.
So really just questions about this, just really solidify whether the council even wants to move forward with this or not, and then, so if you could just have questions, maybe instead of.
Yeah, so I thank you guys very much for the presentation. I think it's much needed, and Chief, I took a tour, so I know firsthand what it's like down there, so. Just 2 questions. I don't know how to phrase it, the future extension, the future ability of it, right? So I think as the chief said, right, he's already in an antiquated building, so if we were to do, whether it's these renovations to this building or whether we build a new building, how much more time does that give us? Is it a 10-year plan, 20-year plan, 50-year plan? Where does that take us in terms of, you know, design and keeping up with whatever codes and safety that you need to be up with?
I mean, we have a current inspection coming up again in August from the Department of Corrections, so we'll see again, applying for different waivers and things, but You know, what we would get to is probably, you know, a good, you know, 45 to 50-year plan of being in line with, all the current standards. And again, to Noel's point, right, we have to walk juveniles into the building through, you know, certain closed sections. We can't hold them in places where doors can be locked and held securely. You know, our Sally Port, where we currently use for storage of, you know, our bicycle unit that we revamped a couple years ago, that technically violates those standards. We don't have any place for storage of those things. So we would meet a, you know, opportunity to, you know, solidify us for, you know, 45 to 50 years.
Is that it with either design, whether it's renovating this or building new, or?
Yes.
Okay, so either design would give us about 40 to 45 years.
I mean, as far as standards are concerned, you're talking about growth of the agency as far as personnel. I can't answer that question. You know, I don't think we get the additional space that we need for files and, you know, housing of personnel and what have you, so.
So that, my next question would be, I think you've kind of answered this already, but what would be your preference in terms of what you would like to see? Would it be a new building, or would it be renovations?
Yeah, I mean, the new building would obviously do two things for us. It allows us to expand for the next, you know, 25, 30, 40 years plus of growth of personnel. Not that I will be here that long. But at the same time, you're also considering that, you know, we're not then oversubscribed for the site where we currently are. And then there's no disruption to the public. So at certain points in time, we have to close the municipal building to do electrical and water and heating and HVAC. So some of the hidden costs that are not here is the fact that, you know, the police department will be housed in trailers for a period of time, and, you know, maybe the front entrance to the borough will be closed, or, and all the other, like I've talked about with Mr. Schultz, like what happens when we have an issue where somebody cuts an electrical line or a water line. So, you know, off-site allows us to do that construction, turnkey, move in, and have seamless operations. We wouldn't have a disjointed, you know, concern about, you know, where does my staff, you know, get changed for the day? Where do we process prisoners? And, you know, we might be processing prisoners down in Hanover Township to, you know, accomplish our objectives. This is kind of best case scenario.
All right, thanks, Keith.
But the borough would never close, so everything would be.
No, yeah, we would maintain 24/7 operations as a police department. We would always figure out things for,
And the
you know,
borough
the clerk
itself.
and what have you. Yep, whether it would be visiting, you know, a trailer somewhere or another office rented out. But those, again, those trailer costs, the rental of the office space, that's not in these figures. So, you know, schemes 2 and 5 versus, you know, 7 is, those costs aren't figured in there.
Nope, I appreciate your due diligence and thoroughness of everything.
It's a labor of love.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your excellent work and for the many months you've been dealing with all the different possibilities. But I am having a tough time with this, and I do better now with a spreadsheet, you know, that has the options and like the project costs. What are you, if you pick this one, what are you getting that you don't have in the others? These are the value added, these are what we're getting up. Disruptions, you know, how long is it, like I noticed that there's different times for build out, you've estimated. So that's a factor for us, because that's a cost benefit to us too, when it takes longer. So I know we're not being asked to compare and pick one now, but if I had to, I would wanna see everything so I could kinda like look at how they lay out next to each other without flipping pages back and forth, trying to compute it in my.
But I don't think we're really, I mean,
I know.
when it goes out for a referendum, there will be different scenarios of,
I just can't see what we're getting with this one that we're not getting with the other one. And I know you have your pros and cons here, but they're very general in nature with the way you summarize them. I know you know what they mean, but I have not been involved, so I don't really know what future challenges means or.
No, is that something we can drill down on
Yeah.
for them?
I know you
For
have
sure.
all that, and I know you have tons of data, and I don't wanna make more work, but for me, it would be much easier to see it that way.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to the cost, I know, like Anna mentioned, $16 to $18 a month, so if it came down to the public having to make a decision on, you know, an A or a B at some point, what, for that extra $2 a month or $200 a year, what is the value that we're adding for that plan over the one before, you know?
Mhm.
So I just think that, you know, that's, as a consumer, I would wanna see what that is.
And the numbers that we're talking about, just so everybody's clear, is this is all rough numbers, okay? So the $17 a month or the $240 a month, that's just an approximate, so I don't want everybody to hang their hat if it's $15 or $19 a month, whatever, but we're just trying to get in the ballpark. Okay? Just don't want anybody to hang their hat on any number that any of us are going to say.
And I know that, what about aesthetics? I know you don't want the front of the building to change, the front footprint.
I mean, here, just the parking is in the rear to come all the way around to the front, for the public would be difficult, right?
Yes.
I don't think we changed the front entrance of the building, that's
Yeah,
just
the front
additional
entrance.
workspace, the front entrance remains the same.
This entrance here will remain the same,
The side frontage.
yeah. The entrance.
Yeah, but, you know, so those kinds of things like are important too, like, and obviously we're not getting aesthetics from this.
No,
application.
right.
But, obviously not as important as functionality either, and price.
We have to see whether the public, or the council, and the public really wants to move forward with this.
Yeah.
For it.
I think it's all important, Nancy. I think everything you said is important. I think the aesthetics, the cost, I think it's all important, so.
Yeah,
Oh, it's certainly important, but we gotta get to that step.
Sure.
To see where we're at.
and I think it's also, you know, we're asking taxpayers to take on an additional burden. So what else are we anticipating possible increases in? You know, it's in uncertain times, we don't know where prices are going on materials and other things that we purchase for, you know, office supplies and computers and stuff. So I guess for them to make that decision, it would kind of be relative to what else we predict is going on, and that's a hard call to make. But I feel like we would have to have a little bit of context for that too.
Just so, a very general idea, right? With furniture, I know they have, you know, they included that in these other, the numbers, the furniture and the computers. So, again, very, very rough is about $300,000 for furniture and, IT, right? Very rough. Anyway, so,
Regardless
just to
of
give
where
you an
we go-
idea.
Regardless of where we go, to wire it,
Probably pretty close.
because we
Pretty
have to
close.
do,
Yeah, I mean, you're still gonna need another printer, you're still gonna need another computer, you're still blah, 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 right? So, just again, a rough number,
that's approved.
right?
Yeah, thanks, thanks for the really great presentation. My concern also with Nancy's was, from the aesthetics, from your perspective, can you give a little bit of background on what types of, that front elevation would look like and how it would possibly,
Yeah, no.
I don't wanna do it either, I just wanna hear what,
I don't think they've gotten to that.
would you say it's difficult to make it not look like an addition?
Oh, it's gonna be very difficult to make it look.
Because I don't wanna look at this and say it's a throwaway option, but to me, it's kind of a throwaway option. The one where we're adding to the rear and we're taking away some parking spaces, the construction staging area would take up how many spaces would you say for that 18 to 20 months?
It's probably as big as the addition would be.
Okay, so for a long time, residents would be inconvenienced as well, especially the operations of the police department.
We would have the off-site parking, and there's parking across the street.
I'm sure we can make
Yeah.
it work, yeah.
There's gonna be an inconvenience really no matter what phase or design that there's.
But the floor plans are really detailed, I need to go through what all these rooms actually indicate, but it looks well laid out. Not sure if there's room for value engineering or how we can make the operations of a new building cheaper to operate than the existing building.
Well, we have to get direction from
Sure.
Joel to, you know, do you want to, it's always a difficult balance between initial costs and operating costs. You know, sometimes you have to pay a little bit more
To pay for that
to
efficiency.
pay for lower operating costs. You know, so it's always a delicate balance between the two. And then, of course, you have lead and all that kind of stuff that you may or may not want. And it's all has to be considered. But to
We
answer
won't
your-
go lead platinum on this.
well,
Thank you,
it's-
Mike.
It's It's interesting.
It's cheap, it's just not popular.
We did that for the county of Hudson, and we got lead gold until, we said we need a $5,000 check to send to the U.S. Green Building Council, and they said, no, not for a plaque on the wall.
That was fun.
No, I'm good. I just wanted to say thank you so much. I mean, since January, I've been fortunate to be very involved in this process. So, like for Nancy, I know probably between, you know, the mayor, myself, chief, and Dave Schultz, we have a better idea of what those differences are, and I think I'd be happy to have you meet with us to kind of go over some of them. And when Chief and I were talking about that feasibility study that we wanted to put in the budget, that was really breaking down those costs, the furniture and everything, but we're not there yet, and I think that's totally okay. So I will keep it, I do not have any questions, but just wanted to say thank you so much. I think it's great to have both options. From speaking to people, it sounds like one, you know, may be a better option than the other, but that is not up to me. That is up to, you know, the people of the council.
Yeah, we'll have 4 options.
Right.
Maybe 5 will be a no, right? So, I don't, you know, we'll
Yeah.
decide that moving forward, but,
Impressive stuff, so thank you very much. I think it just helps everyone get a better, be able to grip the situation a little bit better, and then helps us explain it a little bit better to the residents on pros, cons, costs, all that stuff, so.
Thank you.
Anna, do you have anything to say? You've been involved with this. Do you have anything that you want to input at all, or no?
No, not at this time, like I said, I was just asked to crunch the numbers as far as, you know, going out for a 20-year debt and what that would entail, so.
So we have discussed, again, how we would write this and who would write it, and we discussed the bond attorney, and then also our auditor does this as well. They also did the one for the school, so we're still going back and forth. There will be some input, no matter who does it, from at least both of them, and I'm sure you guys will be involved too, if the council decides to move forward. But, that would be kind of the next step, if the council wants to move forward, and we would put something together for a referendum in November, so. Are you okay moving forward, Bill?
Absolutely, 100%.
All right. Yes. Nancy?
Yes.
Yes.
So, it looks like we'll be moving forward towards a referendum in November, and I appreciate your time and your efforts coming out here, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch, I'm sure the chief will be in touch. Anything else?
Though, is that gonna be a bunch of choices, or gonna be 2 choices? Do we know?
Go ahead.
My thought initially was to, again, confer with all of you, and have us select 2 options. Referendum drafted exactly, so you would see, you know, the cost increase of a tax, or, you know, what the building would cost overall, so that would be included in the referendum, so the voters would know exactly what they were getting to. So there would be 2 options for offsite, one for offsite, one for onsite, and a third was,
No.
we're not gonna do anything at all right now.
Okay. It needs definitely be more simple than this.
Yeah, no, but it really, it's what's written. They'll be doing public presentations ahead of time.
We do, we're gonna have a couple of town halls, like I said, we're gonna host open houses at the police department, up the lead to November for the vote, so probably, you know, 1 or 2 in September, 1 or 2 in October, just here on a Saturday when anybody wants to stop in, or the phone number's on the website, you ever wanna walk in the door and see what we're working with downstairs. And then, you know, well, obviously, you know, we can get up to the farmer's market with some drawings and some pictures, just an opportunity to get out there, because we know, you know, everybody's overly concerned about construction in the borough, so that's why I wanted to be here and present publicly to let you know what we're doing with, and be upfront about, you know, costs and figures and disruptions and all of those things.
So we have until August, I don't know the exact date, maybe
August
10th.
8th. August 8th.
Okay, so 8th or 10th, whatever, to get the referendum drawn up and presented to the county. The county takes it from there and it goes on the ballot.
So a version of this will be made available to the public so that they can see some of the options and what we were looking at.
So,
That's really up to, I would take the attorney's
yeah,
guidance
no,
on that.
I think so, once everything gets narrowed down and put together, obviously before the town halls, right?
Right.
So we'll have something for that, obviously, so.
And that would be my objective with all of you, is to decide on, like I said, and off-site and on-site, and then, obviously, the no option's easy. But then to present on those two features, so we're not going through, 5 different schemes here, like we did this evening with 4 different schemes.
Okay, thank you, everybody, I really appreciate it, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Excuse me,
Appreciate it.
can they give us 10 minutes for an executive before they clean up, and then you can come back?
Sure.
So we can get this in. Yeah, no, you can leave that all on, and just give us about 10 or 15 minutes for an executive session, and you can come back in. Give you some time. Okay.
Yes.